Get me that signal. We need more power.
I am on board the Alert, a yacht out of New Zealand. Despite the odd appearance of the crew, I have taken passage on this ship to further pursue my investigation. We are bound for South Africa, but my apprehension is growing, and I fear that we may never reach our destination. The crew has become increasingly silent, and I feel a projection of vague hostility toward me, bordering on hatred. I have taken to keeping in my cabin and only venturing out when absolutely necessary. Even the cabin boy, who was initially as open and jovially conversant as any normal youth, refuses now to meet my eyes when bringing my meals. If I attempt to speak with him, he simply sneers maliciously and retreats. I have not seen the captain in several days, and from the primitive calculations that I have been able to make from the small porthole in my cabin, I am persuaded that we are much further north than we should be if proceeding directly to South Africa. I fear that the truth of my investigation has been discovered, and that the crewmen of the Alert are also somehow connected to the insidious evil I have unwittingly revealed. You see, there are horrors beyond imagining living just outside the confines of our own fragile reality. They wait for the opportunity to encroach into our world, to devour and enslave humanity. I have recorded the course of my journey, which began with a simple game that I happened across in my uncle's library after his funeral. Since that time, I have crossed the globe attempting to thwart this evil whenever I could. I fear that I have reached the end of my journey. I will fill these pages with as much information as I can, in the hopes that it will somehow, with the grace of God, reach benevolent eyes.
Okay, here we have our whole game board all set up and ready to go. What's going to be going on? Well, in this game, we have two characters going to be competing against the end of the world. Of course, we have Leo Anderson. He's got 6 health and 6 sanity. And down here we can see his relevant statistics. He's got a score of lore of 2, influence of 2, observation 3, strength of 3, and will of 3. These all come into play as we play the game because we have to pass various tests. And Leo also has his own little special actions that he can do. He can test his influence, and if he passes, he gains 1 ally asset. What are assets, you might ask? Well, over here on the corner part of the board, you'll see that there's a bunch of little assets here, and these are our cards that we can get in order to help improve our lives. You can buy any of these cards by taking an action on your turn in order to get points to buy these cards. Like this one here has a cost of 1. This one here has a cost of 2. This one's 3. This one's 4. It just happened to be like that. Or you could also take out this bank loan. Anybody could do this. And that gives you 2 free asset points in order to go towards buying some more stuff. So you end up getting these cards. Well, he gets a free card when the game starts. See, on the back of the card, it tells you where he starts the game and what assets he gets when the game begins. Also, it tells you this little story about himself and what happens if he's either injured or killed, which you get to find out at the end. It's so much fun. Yes, so we also have Lily Chen in this game. She's strong. She's got similar scores. She has her own actions. She starts in Shanghai in China and gets a couple of assets of her own. Now, why are these people coming together to make... Actually, I don't have any idea why they are together. They're in different parts of the world, and I don't know, it's the 1920s, so they're communicating somehow in order to solve this world crisis. which is caused by the appearance of Cthulhu. Yes, Cthulhu is rising. There's 4 different ancient ones provided in the game, and your main task is to stop their nefarious plots. Well, there's a lot of nefarious plots going on, and in order to defeat Cthulhu and his compatriots, which you might face, have these mystery cards. All right? The whole object of the game is to solve 3 of these mystery cards. What are these mystery cards like? Well, let's take a look at them. When this card enters play, move each clue on the game board to the nearest C space. After investigator resolves a research encounter, he may spend 1 clue he gained from that encounter and place that clue on this card. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are clues on this card equal to the number of investigators, solve this mystery. So, right off the bat, we're on this board. We're in our starting home spaces. If you look at the board, they're connected by these light blue lines, which are C routes, or they're also connected by these dotted yellow lines, which are land routes, which are kind of hidden land routes. And there's also railroad lines, like over in there somewhere, between like Rome and Istanbul. And that's how you travel around the board. You go along these routes. Each turn, and let's just go over how a turn works so you can know that. Each turn, there's 3 phases to a turn. And the first part is you're going to take your actions. You get a couple of actions that you can take each turn. You can take 2 actions per turn. And one of them is traveling. So you can go from one spot to another spot. One spot to another spot. Okay, if you notice, each of these spots, there's a big spot, you know, with names and everything. Buenos Aires. Okay? That's where you can have encounters there. You might gain ritual spells. And we have other space, and it's a city space. We have other spaces like this water space. And if you notice, each one of these spaces is numbered. There's a number on every single one. This is wilderness. There's other cities right down here. They don't all have to be named. And additionally, the bigger spaces have colors, like these are the green spaces. There's orange and there's purple over there. There's corresponding encounter cards. If you land in one of those spaces, you have an encounter there. Like if you're in Shanghai, you have that encounter. If you're in Tokyo, you have that encounter. If you're in Sydney, you have that encounter. So, hey, cool, right? Now, so that's one of your actions. You can travel. Another action is also you can prepare to travel, which means you can either take a ticket for a train or a ticket for a boat as one of your actions. And then what that allows you to do is on a future turn, you can use that ticket to travel an extra space without costing you an action. So let's say I'm here in the Amazon and I've got this wonderful water ticket. I can move to Buenos Aires and I can use my ticket to take a boat to the middle of the ocean, which is where everyone really likes to go. You could also rest, and resting allows you to get 1 health and 1 sanity back. Well, those are 3, but you get 1 back for resting. You can only do each action once per turn, so you couldn't rest twice. You could trade with someone who's in your space. Hello, I'm here, let's trade. Or you can perform one of the special actions listed on your character card. You can also acquire an asset, right, which is also fun. Now, that is basically your actions you can take. Now, why are you going to be taking these actions? Well, the next thing that's going to happen is the encounter phase. Wherever you're at, you're going to have some kind of encounter. Hey, I'm in the Amazons. I'm going to have an encounter in the Amazon. So, there's no specific color. I look at it's a wilderness space. So I go over here to the generic encounter deck. And you notice there's city, wilderness, water. I flip that over. I look for wilderness because I'm in the wilderness. Past where your campfire allows you to see, you hear voices chanting. You try to draw a protective sigil in the ground. Roll a lore test. If you pass, the next morning you find evidence of cult activity that you can use to identify the cult members. Gain 1 clue or improve your influence. If you fail, gain a curse condition. Well, curse conditions stink. So we're going to try to pass this test here. So there's my lore. It's a 2. That means I get 2 dice to roll. I'm going to want to roll a 5 or a 6 in order to pass. I rolled 2 4s, which means I failed. And that really stinks because one of the worst things that can happen is to gain a cursed condition. I have this whole nice deck of condition cards. And usually they kind of suck, but they can really suck if you have to flip them over. So let's say we get this cursed card, right? Only 6s count as successes. So now instead of rolling a 5 or a 6 on any test, I have to roll a 6. Ugh. If you would gain another cursed condition, you flip this card instead. Now that's a big thing in this game. You're flipping a card and reading what it says on the back, which usually isn't good news. If you would gain a blessed condition, discard this card. And during a turn, if this symbol comes up, you can roll a die, and on a 4, 5, or 6, you can discard this cursed condition. Let's just say we had to flip it. What would happen? I'm harried. A fortune teller explains that you're a beacon visible to all monstrous beings. For as long as this curse stands, you will be hunted by those creatures. You hear a feral growl outside in the dark. A monster ambushes you. Remember, only 6s count as successes on this card. Then flip this card. Great. That's something to look forward to. So, curse conditions generally are really bad. You want to get rid of them as much as possible. And now we'll travel over to Lily Chen, who happens to be in the Himalayas, which is where we also have to have our expedition at the time. Now, what is this expedition and why is it in the Himalayas? Well, in addition to the various players in the world who are moving around trying to accomplish the same goal with all knowledge and yet no knowledge of each other's existence, there is this expedition taking place. And it's in the Himalayas. Why is it in the Himalayas? Because when I shuffled this deck of expedition encounter cards at the beginning of the game, the top card shows the Himalayas on the back. The backs are different. So that means that's where this expedition starts the game, in the Himalayas. If you actually go there and have an encounter with the expedition, you take the card and you flip it. And there is a test. You duck into a cave to find shelter from the deadly snowstorm. Inside, the tunnels twist and turn in the dark, making it almost impossible to navigate. Take a observation test. So, first thing I gotta do is take an observation test. Her observation is 2. So I get 2 dice. Luckily, she still only needs a 5 or 6. And she rolls 2 3s. So she fails. The top one is pass. The bottom one is fail. Large, winged, crab-like beings surround you. You're going to have to fight if you want to escape. Strength -1. If you pass, you subdue them ego for a study. Gain 2 clues. If you fail, the creatures inject you with a general glowing serum. Gain an internal injury condition. Okay, strength -1. So that's 4 -1 is 3. So she gets 3 dice. Of course, I've never mentioned to you, but these dice are all cursed. I believe Fantasy Flight curses all of their dice before placing them into the box. Hey, she passed. What do you know? She gets 2 clues. Clues. Now, let's talk a little bit about clues for a second. In this game, clues are a much harder commodity to come by. They're used to solve a lot of your mysteries, but you have to earn them in a specific way. As the game goes on, you'll be called upon to refer to this reference card depending on the number of players. For 2 players, 1 player, 3 players. And it tells you that when you have to spawn a gate, how many gates you're supposed to spawn. When you have to spawn a clue, how many clues you're supposed to spawn. And when you have a monster surge, how many monsters are involved in this surge. So at the start of the game, you're only spawning 1 clue. And how do you do that? Well, you take one of these cute little clues and you flip it over. And it says right on there a number. And that is where that clue goes. So that's number 9. So that clue is up there at number 9. So if my friend over here in the Amazon spent a few turns going over here, and he would go up to number 9, he can now have an encounter there in order to try to discover this clue. So he takes one of the encounter cards from Cthulhu's special deck, flips that over, and let's see, he is in a wilderness space. Cultists have snuck into your camp trying to steal your equipment. Pass an observation test. If you pass, you catch one of them and get a chance to question him. Gain this clue. If you fail, discard 2 items and move this clue to the nearest C space. Great. Okay. Well, guess what? He needs a 6 in order to pass. His observation is 3, so he gets 3 dice. And he needs to roll a 6 in order to try to get this clue. He does it. It's a miracle. He gets this clue. So he takes the clue and he can put it on here. And then, remember this card says, after an investigator resolves a research encounter, which is what he just did, he may spend 1 clue he gained from that encounter and place it on his on this card. So now, he can take this, put it on the mystery card, and now there is 1 clue on that mystery card. If they get 1 more on there, that mystery is solved and you go to the next mystery. If they solve 3 mysteries, well, then they win the game and everyone is happy. Yay! But there's a few bad things happening as well. Cthulhu has his own stuff going on, and the 3rd phase of each turn is the Mythos phase. That's when you grab one of these cards and you flip it. These decks, Mythos decks, there's a whole bunch of cards and they're all assembled in a specific way, because there's green cards, yellow cards, and blue cards. And this tells you how to set up your deck that you're going to be drawing from for the game. Like in stage 1, which is the first part of the game, you would have 2 yellow cards, 2 blue cards, right? And you'd pick them at random, shuffle them together, put them on the side. That's stage 1. Then you'd do the same with stage 2 and stage 3. And then you'd stack them up with stage 2 on top of stage 3 and stage 1 on top of stage 2. And then you start drawing cards and following them. Well, what this tells you is, here's an important thing. This is the omen tracker, right? The omen counter is this space up in the corner of the board. Let me see if I can just zoom in on that for you. See that there? Now that little round marker will go across all 4 spaces. And when it says to advance the omen track, you're going to move that thing 1 space over. And what does that do? Well, that tells you that whatever token symbol is on that space, that's the gates. You count those number of gates. And that's how far your doom track is going to advance. So let's say it moves 1 space over and it shows this symbol. So any gate that's on the board that has this symbol, you count them. Let's say there's 2 of them on the board. 1, 2. You count them, and then the doom track goes down 1, 2. Closer towards Cthulhu waking up. There's your doom track across the top of the board. Once he wakes up, more bad things happening, but it's not the immediate end of the game. You just flip his card over and then follow the instructions on the back. You can possibly survive, but it is, of course, much harder, because once everyone is insane, which is what Cthulhu slowly does, then the game is over and everybody loses. And what is that second symbol that was on the Cthulhu Mythos card? That's that little check this action. So any card that has this little symbol on it, you have to roll some kind of die. For example, Cthulhu himself has one of those symbols on him. So when that happens, each investigator on a C space that does not contain an Eldritch token places an Eldritch token on his space. What will happen is, as the game goes along, all the C spaces are going to fill up with these Eldritch tokens. Well, what does that mean? When an investigator moves onto a space containing an Eldritch token, he becomes delayed and loses 1 sanity. Becoming delayed basically means you lose your actions till next turn. And, losing sanity is always bad. Other cards can have them too, like this curse condition. He gets to roll 1 die. On a 4, 5, or 6, he gets to discard this curse condition. So he would roll. And he rolls a 2, of course, so he's still cursed. And there's some monsters have curse conditions on them. Not curse conditions. Have this little symbol on their token. So you would have to flip them over, roll a die. On a 1 or a 2, advance doom by 1. So, generally, it's not good. The final symbol is to spawn a new gate. And you spawn a new gate by drawing a gate token from the stack. Looking at it, it says San Francisco on it. You put it over in San Francisco. Now we have another gate. And remember, the more gates, the more chance that the omen track is going to advance that doom track to the end. of the game. And that is just about everything that is in this game. Yeah, it was fast. I glossed over some stuff, but I think you got the general idea. There's a lot of good stuff here.
In truth, this is not a difficult game to play, especially if you have Arkham Horror experience. There's a book of rules and an additional reference guide that provides more detailed explanations on the concepts in the game. The back of the reference guide has a quick reference that comes in really handy. I think that this game is excellent, although sometimes I do feel like the odds are just too stacked against me. It isn't easy to win, although the times I have won were with 4 or 5 players. I haven't played with a full complement of 8 players, so I'm not sure where the game stands on that point. I get the feeling that it would make for quite a long game. They do include rules for increasing or decreasing the difficulty, but I never pay attention to those, do you? I mean, if I can't win at normal difficulty, then I assume that either I stink at the game or the game is just too difficult. So far, I've been having a great time, and I'm assuming that my multitude of losses is due to my learning curve. With 1 or 2 players, it's a pretty difficult game. Many times it will still come down to the luck of the draw. I played a 2-player game in which we placed the final token on the mystery card. According to the rules, if we make it to the end of the Mythos phase, we would win the game. However, when it came down to the time to draw that final Mythos card, it advanced the Omen token, which in turn advanced the Doom track, and we ended up losing the game. That was frustrating as we were right there, and we still lost. The funny thing is, it made me want to play another game right away. It would have been nice if they had included a few more cards. There are only 4 ancient ones, and most of the encounter decks only have 8 cards each. It just seems to me like there could have been a little more to keep the variety going a bit longer. Also, it seems that FFG has completely given up on providing you any easy means of storage for their games. There aren't even any Ziploc bags included with Eldritch Horror. A cloth monster bag would have been nice too. It feels a bit like a no-frills game. Does everything have to be an add-on? Sure, I can get my monster bag and Eldritch dice from my Arkham Horror box, but lots of games already come with custom dice and a cloth bag, and they're still reasonably priced. As a final note, Fantasy Flight Games has already released an FAQ for Eldritch Horror, which I recommend you download if you pick up this game. With this many cards, there are bound to be clarifications and corrections, and the initial ones have already been addressed in the FAQ. Well, I fear that they're almost upon me and I'm out of time. Regardless of these quibbles of mine, I still think that overall, Eldritch Horror is a great new thematic entry into the Lovecraftian universe from Fantasy Flight Games. Fans of other games in this line will not be disappointed. Thanks for joining me in this review. Let me know if you found the review helpful by leaving a comment or sending me an email at elliott_miller@voiceofe.com. Make sure to subscribe to the Voice of E channel on YouTube, like the Voice of E on Facebook, and visit our website at voiceofe.com, as I'll have plenty of gaming, entertainment, and comic book coverage this year, and it should be a lot of fun. Thanks again, and until next time, keep your mind free. Ah!